Thanks, Ruben. Hi, my name is Neville, and I'm an alcoholic. Sure, 11 years. I always like to pretend I'm not nervous. And I was in the shower, and I'm like working out my shed, going, okay, I'll start like this, and then I park the car in the parking lot, and that all just goes. Nerves kick in. But you know what? I suppose it's my story, and I can only hope that my higher power speaks through me, and I'll end up helping someone. Because it was quite a journey to get to this point, and it was quite a journey just to get up into my first day into recovery. A little background. I grew up with your average dysfunctional family. Mom's alcoholic. Dad was, he was hectic, He was brought up in the army, in the old South Africa, so he had certain ways of thinking, and, he was very, he was just different. But, from a young age, I remember my mom being drunk and my dad fighting, and then the two of them were fighting all the time. And and that's what it used to upset me. I remember that, and I used to get very withdrawn, and and just want to do my own thing, or just get out, and I suppose run, So that was. I remember that being, from a young age. Started school, and it wasn't a very easy thing for me to do. I could never study, or I gave up very easily if things got hard. And I went to quite a few primary schools. One a weird moment is I remember coming home in grade 1. I was living in Durban, and there was a moving van outside my house, and next minute our bags were packed and we moved to Joburg. And also I had a surname change, and I'm like, oh, that's very strange. But anyway, it was, no one ever spoke about this. No one ever, the family that's what we did. And, I started my life in Joburg, that was primary school. And I remember I struggled at primary school. I think I failed or kept back or whatever, a few grades, and I landed up in a remedial school. They said I was dyslexic, and I don't know. I look back at this, maybe if I just tried a little bit, things would have been better. But I even remember at a primary school level, things got hard. I was like, oh, fuck that, I'm not doing that. And that was my attitude, throughout the whole of my schooling career. My dad got sick. He got a brain tumor, and we landed up having this. We were living in the North Rand in Joburg. I don't know if anybody knows how it works, but it's all really split up. And his brothers were all living in the East Rand. Now, if anybody knows the East Rand, it's a little bit rougher than the North Rand. And we landed up moving to that side. And they say if you're the black sheep of your family, I found my flock. I remember I landed up at the school, and it was rough. Yeah. I remember I must have been standing at 6 somewhere. We landed up moving there, and I got invited to a birthday party. I was new in the school, and I had never got drunk. And we were there, and then they were speaking about getting your drinking license, and I was like, I've never done that. And they gave me 2 zombie glasses full of neat brandy, and I downed them both. And it was a mess. I've never, to this day, I don't think I've ever been that drunk, but things were messy. I mean, I was sick. I was lying in bushes, lying outside in the falling, crying and then getting myself back together, then diving into a pool. And, it was a real mess. But I remember loving it so much that I landed up with alcohol poisoning for a week. I couldn't go to school. I just lay in bed. But in all of that madness, all I wanted to do was to do that again, And I often think back, I think that was the day, I think that was the day my alcoholism kicked off, Yes, there was plenty behaviors up until, but that was the starting point. Because from that point, whenever I went out, I used to, I worked out my ID number, but it added, 2 years after. I was always 18 whenever I went. And I remember going out, and if I drank towards vomit, and that's what I thought was cool. That's what all I wanted to do was not just get tipsy, but get completely and utterly out of it. And so that was the start of my journey, and it carried on like that. It didn't ease off at any time. It went. I was full blown up until my last of my days. So life got very messy. The whole rave scene started. I was sneaking in and out of the house at night time. I'd sawn the bars off my burger bars at the bottom, so I could lift it up, sneak out at night time, and then when I come back at some time, bend it back and just wait there. I'd wake up in the morning, I would, go have breakfast with everybody. I don't know how, they didn't see or smell anything, but I would have breakfast, get dressed for school, start walking to school because I lived around the corner. And as my dad drove past me, I would wave goodbye, he'd hit the corner, I would turn around and go back home. And that was my schooling, I remember failing one standard because I was only there for a quarter of the year, And landed up being kicked out of that school. Then I landed up going to a college, and the whole rave scene started. So, everybody started experimenting with different types of chemicals, and it was paradise for me, And also the people were taking maybe one tablet or, through the night. I'd be taking 2 at a time, 3 times, and that was me. Always, I couldn't just get a little bit, I always had to go to the extreme. And the people around that I hung with did the same thing. Started getting into trouble, started getting, by that time I'd been arrested already once for hanging around with the wrong crowd, got into a situation, someone got stabbed, and I was in the middle of all of this. But it's always I'm in the middle of all of this, why me? And I was always praying at that time only, please get me out of this, my God, and I won't do it again. I'll be an upstanding member of society. And it was always I prayed, or I leant onto my higher power to get me out of trouble, And eventually I had to leave Joburg. I got in my head, the police were looking for me, and I went down to Cape Town because Joburg was the bad influence. Cape Town will be able to get a fresh start. I knew nobody there except the guy that I went down with, and this guy and I used to use together. But I landed up moving in with my uncle in the one area, and my friend stayed far away, so that wouldn't be a problem. Started working at a nice hotel at the waterfront, and like I say, with that whole black sheep. And true's Bob, I think I'd been there a week, and I met someone who came down from Victoria, exactly like me. Running away from Victoria, came to Cape Town to get a fresh start, same situation, and bang. The whole scene that I left Joburg with now started in Cape Town, drinking and using, blacking out had started by then already. Yeah, my uncle happened to be alcoholic also. So, you know, I didn't realize back then, but wherever I went, I didn't realize I went with, you know, so everything was just a complete disaster wherever I went, but it took me to come into recovery to see it. You know, I started working when things really started going a little pear-shaped. Was just after, oh no, it's pear-shaped, I think that started just after high school. But my using and drinking had really got out of hand, and I thought, you know what, I have to get out of here. So I went to applied for working on the cruise liners, and I thought, you know what, this is it. Hey, I can't drink, I can't use. Oh, true's Bob, I meet somebody on the cruise liner that used to hang around in my group, and it all started again. I mean, first night on the cruise ships was a blackout, and it didn't really get much better from there. It even got to a point that I went out a few times and I smuggled drugs onto the cruise ships. I mean, if I look back, I mean, the amount of trouble that I would have got in, I don't think me in a Mexican jail would have been gone down very well. And I mean, but these are the situations that I would always get myself into, you know. And you never think about the consequences that you could get into while doing it. It's only like after the fact. But yeah, eventually I got fired from the cruise liners. Obviously I was drunk on duty and I made a complete fool of myself. You know, it's still sometimes, some of the things that I've done in active, it's like I used to sit back and tell us not to, you know, don't shut the door in the past. But if I can picture that some of my behavior was really, really bad. And you know, one thing recovery has given me, it's like I don't ever have to behave like that again. And I mean, I'm no saint, but I mean, I was really bad. Got fired, got deported out of some country, and, you know, landed back in Cape Town, tail between my legs, and, you know, now what? And so, you know, I kicked off again. Now I was using and drinking. But I had all this, you know, why did I do that? And, you know, now I'm depressed and now I want to start, you know. So, but nothing changed, you know, nothing changed, and because nothing changed. And, things got really, the progress of my active addiction now was hectic. Now I was working in a bar, because it was the only place that I could work and still, you know, keep my using and drinking together, because the bar would stay open until 4 a.m, and that was perfect for me, you know. So my drug addiction and my alcoholism was just rife, and I turned this bar into a drug-infested cesspool that it really got bad, you know. And I was justifying, I'm like, but the bar's making so much more money now, not thinking of like the reputation of the owners or, you know, the mess that I'm leaving behind. I never thought about anything else because, you know, I never thought I was, but I'm flipping selfish. I always think about me, and how I felt and what I was going through, and, you know, what the things happen in my life. And because something happened when I was about 16. My mom was drunk, and I found out that I was adopted when she was drunk, and I used that to fuel everything that I did, and that was my go-to. You know, why are you behaving like this? No, I found out I was adopted when I was 16, and my mom was, and I always used that as I went along. You know, self-pity, victim all the way. But anyway, so, you know, I used to get into horrible situations, But anyway, I was in this terrible relationship with a girl that she drank too much and she used too much drugs. And I was there to, try and help her because, she had a problem. And I seriously, I look back, like shame, and her boyfriend's so abusive to her, and I met her at a swinging party, and I thought, why don't you come home with me? I'll look after you. I remember I landed up getting some inheritance. It was the beginning of 2010. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think I got like 150,000 Rand. And I was like, cool. Started, I barely worked. I could only work a few hours a night because that's all I could manage by this time. But now I had some money, so I bought myself a little scooter. And, I was in this relationship. And I said to this girl, you know what, you've really got a problem. I think you need to go to rehab. And she was like, no. But anyway, lots of fights were happening. I had my using had progressed to almost every type of drug that there was. I was always drunk. And this girl and I were in this horrible relationship, and she was seeing me and another girl and something else, and I don't know. It was a complete mess, and I wanted to send her to rehab. And she said, no, I'm not going to go. I said, well, you know what, then I'm going to go. Stuff you. And, but I was like, I know, joking, but things had got bad, by that stage, I was, you would wake up in the morning or the afternoon and you're like, oh, Christ, I lived through that. Because by this stage, every night was a blackout. I would wake up every morning, first try and work out where I was, where my bike was, where's my wallet, what's going on. And this chick will be sitting in the lounge just staring at me. You know what you did last night? And I was like, oh, God. You would wake. And so I don't remember if I think she tried OD or something like that, but I remember, and I think her brother came to pick her up, but I woke up one morning and I was done. And I remember falling out of bed, and for the first time in a long time, I dropped to my knees, and I often share about this, but it was my day that I had had enough. And I prayed. And I prayed for two things. I either prayed that I would just die in my sleep because I didn't have the courage to commit suicide. I didn't. Or something would change, And I don't remember how, but we often call it about that golden thread. But I just phoned, I don't even remember how, but I started phoning people. And someone said to me, yeah, Nev, we've noticed you've got a problem and we've been waiting for this call. And I'm like, what? And I landed up getting in touch with one of Keith's friends in Cape Town. And he's like, we've needed to have this chat for a while, but I've waited until you're ready. And I'm like, you know what? Didn't see it then, but I can see it now, how God was really working in my life. And he landed up getting me in touch with, I landed at the house on the hill, the owner there, and the ball started running, I remember coming home and telling this girl, that's it, I'm leaving, I'm going to rehab. She didn't believe me. I told her the moving van will be here in 3 hours. You can choose to go or stay on the bed. I'll pay rent for the next 3 months, and then it's up to you. And by this stage, this was June, August. So this was July. July, I had already spent about, 80,000 Rand of that inheritance from January to July, paying rent, a bike, and party. And I had nothing to it was a mess. So my life had really... I had tried to get jobs by then, and no one was hiring me anymore. I mean, it's a small little town, and if you think about it, and someone like me, everybody knew me, and everybody said, do not hire him. I couldn't hold down a job. As soon as it start getting afternoon, I would start getting wasted. It didn't matter where I was. And a moving van came in, took what stuff that I could take, or the stuff that she didn't lose her mind over, and I left. Put my stuff into a friend's garage, and within a few days, caught an air ticket from Cape Town to Durban. I got picked up by, Rob was my first guy that I met, and drove through to Dududu. I remember waking up, passed out in the car for conversations, and waking up and just seeing mountains, shacks, and sugarcane, and I'm like, really? In my head I had a nice building in the city somewhere, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted some type of change, and I was told just to try it out. Just be open-minded, go there, but I didn't want a religious program. I didn't want someone praying to me, holding their hands up in there, praying to Jesus. And I was like, but the guy just said, be open-minded and go, and I was. I remember I arrived there on the 3rd of August. 4th of August was my first day clean, and nervous, but I'd had enough, and that's one of the things. I didn't want to carry on anymore, and started my steps. I got a buddy, worked through the program. I think I was there 3 months, then moved into the halfway house for a year, and then I got into a relationship. And if you thought recovery was hard, try second year in a relationship. Pink cloud was gone by then. I had to start working a program all the time. Because your first year, you're pink cloud, you're around your buddies in a halfway house. The thing was easy. Life was easy. All you had to do is, go work, go to meetings. It was cushy. But I had met Candace, and I didn't do things right from the beginning, but I always knew that if I do something wrong, stop it, work my program around it, and just try and do the next right thing. And that's what I did. I've always tried to keep my program simple. Just do the next right thing, And Candace and we moved into a little flat, and then we moved into another little flat, and we always just improved, the more work we put into things got better for us, And then Chloe came down. I think she must have been, year 2.5, but Chloe was about 3. And for the first time in my life, I had to not just think about me, but now I had to start thinking about a little person, someone that needs to look up to me, and it was difficult. It was really hard, but I loved it. I always wanted to not have a child go through what I did at home, and that's the idea in your head, but life's difficult, and then things happen, and children do stuff that you don't agree with, and then you lose your shit, and then you got to make amends, and that's what it's been about, learning. I had to learn to be a parent. I had to learn. By that stage, I had to learn to, just look after myself, and it's been an amazing journey. Chloe, I think Chloe was 8 when Carter came along, around there. By that time, Candace and I got married, and we decided to have another child. And then Carter came along. And that was like, I was there for the whole birth, and it was hectic, eh? I mean, now you've got this thing that's about, well, it's a lot bigger than all the other ones in the hospital. So it was, but you had to, now it's constant. Now, I mean, I was working in restaurants in Scotland at that stage, and I was working from 10 in the morning until 11, 12 at night. So I would come home, and then that's when my shift would kick in. So I would be, I would look after them at that stage, at that time of night, and then, try to get some sleep. And I mean, it was hard. I mean, having babies is not easy. But but I loved it, because I've always had a program to fall back on, There's been times throughout my recovery where my program has slacked a little bit and life has got harder. I pull my program back up, and life gets easier. So I've learned over the years, it's like, higher power program, top of the priority, and everything else does seem to go easier, go smoother. As soon as I decide to take the hands on the wheel and go into the bush somewhere, everything gets hard. And that's been my experience over the years, with working my program. Difficult times is like, Chloe was all cool when Carter was born, and then realized that she's not the only one. And so things got difficult at home, and, it was hard. It's been hard times, but it's all about showing love. That's all what children wanted. It's just the one, love and attention constantly. But I've had to learn to it's not all about me. It's all about having to have to get out of bed and make tea and wake up early and chat to the child, and these are all things. It's parenthood has been like maybe the most difficult thing, because I could have never done this when I was an active. I take my hat off to someone that wants to have babies in active addiction, because let me tell you, it's hard being sober and doing this. I could never imagine doing this drunk. So life has been good. I started working up at the house in the hill a few years ago, and by that stage, I was struggling a lot working in restaurants. I was dealing with drunk people all the time, and it was very difficult. And I remember going for job interviews, and this was like a moment of God working in my life. And I remember going for a job interview, and they're like going, okay, cool, nothing's happening. And I was struggling with, being in the restaurants and the bars. I mean, by that stage, sometimes I'd come home at 2 a.m. and having to deal with drunk up, coked up people, and it was like, it was difficult. And I was fighting it. I was always complaining. Things were going rough at home. And I remember, they talk about acceptance. And I remember praying one day and saying, God, if this is what you want me to do for the rest of my life, so be it. I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm not lying. I think within 2 weeks of me accepting my situation and being okay with it, I got a phone call to come up to the house in Hill for an interview. It was like, wow. Yet again, my higher power stepping in as soon as I start working a program. Letting go, let God. And so life changed, and it's really been awesome. I've developed a lot more life skills than I've ever had in my life, and it's learning to live and learning to look after myself and learning to, be a loving person. And it's all due to this, so these guys that wrote this book, I mean, that's the basis of, you know, how I live nowadays. You know, I've grown, I've got friends now that, I mean, I don't know anybody from my past. I got one guy, he lives on an island in Malaysia somewhere that, you know, was the only guy I really spoke to. And other than that, I don't really speak to anybody that's not in this program, because these are my true friends. I mean, there are people here that, you know, we've grown up together. You know, I did a reading. There was a reading in a sister fellowship this morning. It was that spoke about, you know, we found that we do not recover we do not recover physically, mentally, or spiritually overnight, and that's been my experience. I mean, I am now, you know, 11 years, and you know, I still feel that I'm growing every day. You know, and there are days that I don't get everything right, but there are days where I live in serenity because, you know, I work my program. I've got a relationship with a higher power that I am 100% reliable on. I need to start my day, you know, speaking to my higher power. I need to end my day speaking to my higher power. I need to have the people in this fellowship, the friends that I have nowadays that, you know, when I'm going through something, it's dial a friend. And let me tell you, there will be some kind of chat at the end and I will feel better. You know, how many times if I've been in a mess somehow while I'm going through something, all I do is I go to a meeting, I shut up, I sit down and I listen. I come out of that meeting, either my problem's resolved, or I've got a plan, or it's completely gone because I've recharged myself with using this program, you know, and listening to someone in a meeting. I just like, you know, the gratitude I have for this program it's unbelievable. You know, it's been an amazing journey. I've got so much to be grateful for. One of the main things that have happened in the recent years is because of my mom being the way she was, I had such a resentment towards her. You know, it was really bad. I think when I was speaking to my sponsor in treatment, and it was like, you know, I don't know how to deal with her. And he's like, but she's just like you. And I'm like, and I don't know how to deal with me. But God has put myself into a situation where my mom had to move in with us. I had to move her down from Joburg, and then eventually I had to move her in with us. Yeah, it's helped us out to where we live, but now my mom has got, it's either dementia, Alzheimer's, or a little bit of both, or she's losing her mind, and it's difficult. My mom was like my favorite cook. Now she struggles making toast. And I've had to practice a lot of love and a lot of forgiveness and now a lot of understanding, you know, with this lady that I grew up resenting, you know. So God also working in my life, you know, making me, you know, work my program and do all these things for my mom now. I got to spend the morning with her yesterday, and this old frail lady was so grateful for me, you know, and she just hugged me in the car and said, thank you so much. Then forgot about most of the things we did an hour later, and I had to be okay with that, you know, because, you know, it's my time to, you know, be there for her. But yeah, that's all I really have to share about it. I just want to say thanks for everybody who came here and listened to me, and I hope you got something out of it. Thank you.